Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. So good morning to all. It's a pleasure for me to discuss with you this morning. My name is Virginie Lefebvre. I am Program and Partnerships Coordinator with Amel Association International. Today, I'll give you an overview of what is our history, about our objective, what's our vision, and then a briefing about what are our activities. But as well, I'll take this opportunity to give you an overview of our different procedures, capacity building activities, partnerships, and other relevant points. Please feel free to stop me if I'm talking too fast or if you didn't get properly what I said. Okay? So let's start now. So Amel is a Lebanese and non-sectarian NGO created in 1979. Our headquarters are in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, but we work through 24 centers and 6 mobile medical units. There's a small mistake in the PowerPoint presentation. Since 35 years, more than 35 years. We work in the poorest region of Lebanon, so Beirut, which is the capital, Mount Lebanon, which is Lebanon, which is at the border of Palestine, and Bekaa, which is at the border of Syria. We offer accessible services for all in different fields. I will walk you through the different programs and sectors, but just as a general overview, we work in the health sector, in the psychosocial sector, professional training, rural development, child protection, and human rights promotion. Amel is an independent NGO, so it means that we're not related to any political parties or any particular sect in Lebanon. This is quite unusual for this country, which is quite divided between more than between a dozen of different sects. You can see on this slide a picture of our activities during the 80s. I want to comment these pictures because it shows that Amel was working back in the 70s with vulnerable populations in Lebanon. Our approach is divided on 3 pillars: services, development, and human rights, which means that when someone enters one of our centers, he will be provided with basic services, for instance, health consultation. Then we will gain his or her trust, and we will be able to engage him or her in development activities. And ultimately, we will promote with him or with her the culture of human rights, and then we'll be able as well to provide protection and to engage in the all our centers and of our mobile medical units. One important point which is mentioned in this slide is that we have interventions targeting all populations without discrimination, which means that when someone enters one of our centers, we're never going to ask him what's your political background, what's your religion, are you from this country or are you from this other country. Our centers are open to all. Indeed, we will then do a social assessment, then we would get additional details, but as a first step, our centers are open to all populations without discrimination. So our objectives are set by our internal charter. We have 5 general objectives. The first one is to promote social, economic, civil, and cultural rights, particularly for the underprivileged populations in Lebanon. We have around 25% of the population in Lebanon who lives below the poverty line. In Lebanon, the poverty line is defined as living less than $4 per day. Okay? It gives me also the opportunity to contextualize a little bit my presentation today about Lebanon. So I guess you all know that Lebanon is located in the Middle East region. We have a population of 4 million inhabitants, in addition to 1.5 million Syrian refugees, which makes more than 30% of our population, it's the country with the highest ratio between national population and refugee population. We do also have 250,000 Palestinian refugees from Lebanon who are here since the 40s. And we have about 250,000 domestic workers from Philippines, from Bangladesh, from Ethiopia, other countries. I will talk a little bit later on what kind of abuse these populations are and how do we tailor our intervention to their needs. So this is the context of Lebanon. Information as well. Lebanon faced a civil war during the 70s and the 80s, so basically from 75 to 90s. And this is how we were created, to answer to the emergency needs of the population during the civil war. Then and during the 90s, we faced recurrent invasions, mainly from Israel. In 2006, there was quite a big intervention from Israel here in Lebanon, bombing during a period of 30 days. And then since April 2011, we are here facing the consequences of the Syria civil war. So we are basically facing particularly the consequences of the demographic influx of Syrian refugees and Palestinian refugees from Syria and Lebanon. But later on, I'll have the opportunity to stress a little bit more on the consequences of the Syrian crisis. So from what I said, I think that you can understand that Lebanon is a country which is basically facing crises recurrently for the past 40 years. And also a country with what we call a failing state, which means that the state is not providing basic services to its population, including electricity, which is why we have power cuts, but as well including health and education. This is why one of our first objectives is to promote social, economic, civil, and cultural rights. Let's continue with our objective. We also have as an objective to contribute to build a strong and mobilized civil society in order to strengthen national unity and promote democratic value. As mentioned is in the contextualized presentation I just gave you, we have a failing state, so we have at the same time to build a strong civil society to answer to the basic needs of the vulnerable population. And we have a lot of sectarian divisions, which is why, as Amel, we have this aim of strengthening national unity. We also have, as one of our aims, to advocate and to lobby for the principles of human rights in order to ensure social justice. Because at Amel, we do believe that we need to work for the dignity of all populations, and it passed by social justice. This is why, as well, our interventions aim at reducing inequalities. We also have one of our primary objectives to assist and provide quality services for everyone in different sectors, including the medical, but also the training fields of activities. Why do we say quality services? Because here in Lebanon, in remote area and in urban settings, often there are no services, or the services available are really of a bad quality, particularly in the sectors of health and education. So at Amel, we're not only into this approach of saying we need to provide health consultation. No, really our approach is we need to provide quality health consultation. It's not because we're working with underprivileged or vulnerable population that we shouldn't provide them with quality. And indeed, promoting equal right and opportunities is important given the fact there's a lot of discrimination in Lebanon and a lot of inequality. So, overview about us as an association and about our registration and membership. So we're a national Lebanese NGO. We are registered with the Ministry of Interior since 1979. Amel is also a member of the Lebanese NGOs network, and our president, Dr. Kamel Mohanna, is the general coordinator of this Lebanese NGOs network, which gathers the biggest NGO in Lebanon. Back in 2013,
Jenny, are you still on the ML objective slide? Yes, new slide is arrived here.
Yeah, new slide arrived. So back to registration and so, we realized back in April 2013 that there was a need for an additional structure, more of an operational structure, and this is why as well Amel contributed to the creation of an informal platform of Lebanese and Palestinian NGOs called the Local NGOs Forum. Currently, on the behalf of Amel, I'm the focal point of this forum, which gathers more than 20 Lebanese and Palestinian NGOs. It is also within this framework that Amel is a member of the humanitarian country team here in Lebanon. The humanitarian country team has, in terms of membership, all heads of UN agencies, representatives of international and national NGOs, and representatives as well of donors. And this particular body is determined and humanitarian act. We were here in Lebanon, one of the first countries, this particular structure, all the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Nations. So here in Lebanon, we were one of the first countries where local humanitarian countries. Amel plays a little bit the role of catalyst here in Lebanon, which means that the China is not responsible to promote strong involvement of the national, the local NGOs, not only at the field level, but at the coordination level as well. And we're trying as well to bring this expertise at the international level. And this is being done through the different international platforms and networks we're engaged with. We are a notable member of the Humanitarian Accountability Partnership, this network which promotes the core humanitarian standards. We are also a member of the International Council of Voluntary Associations, and we have the consultative status with the ECOSOC. We also recently contributed to the creation of NEAR.
What is this ECOSOC? What is this ECOSOC?
So ECOSOC is a coordination body and a consultative body related to the United Nations, and it gathers NGOs but as well UN representatives. It's a consultative body to raise issues related to NGOs all around the world. So they are holding regular meetings to discuss these issues. Also, the Human Rights Council is related to the ECOSOC. So basically, all the consultative procedures of the UN are related to this particular body, which meets more or less once per year, a little bit more often, but for us, we're trying to send representatives more or less once per year in order to discuss issues related to civil society and to the UN. I was saying that we also recently contributed to the creation of the NEAR network, which is a network of Southern NGOs, or NGOs coming from the global South. And the objective of this particular network is to promote the localization of humanitarian action, but as well to promote increased direct funding going to local NGOs. So this is for Amel, the Lebanese NGO. Amel also became 5 years ago an NGO with offices outside Lebanon. This is why we're saying that we became international. We have one office registered in Geneva. This office has been set up to conduct advocacy actions at the level of Geneva. So for instance, next week there will be the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, consultations in Geneva. So we will have a representative there to express our views on our partnership with UNHCR and to advocate, for instance, for increased funding for Lebanon, but as well for fair partnerships between the UN and local civil society. We also, 1 year ago, created a branch in France. It is located in the southern part of France. This branch has another approach, and their approach is to conduct humanitarian activities in Europe. So, right now, they have an assessment mission ongoing in Greece, and the aim of this mission is to see indeed what are the needs, and to see how we can replicate some of the interventions we're having. I will present to you the different approaches you have, so you will have later on an idea of our different projects. But basically, our idea is to share our experience with other countries and to implement activities there. This is for what's currently happening, but we also have projects to open one office in Gaza, in Palestine, and another office in the USA. It has been registered lately in the USA, and one of our first projects will be to conduct non-formal activities, meaning language and math classes with refugee children in the USA. Again, our idea is based on our best practices here in Lebanon. We want to replicate this model in other countries. So, the different programs and sector we're active in. So, we're active, you can picture down in the sector of education, support to migrant domestic workers, child protection, distribution of non-food items, rural development and gender, Amel House for Human Rights, Amel Youth, and livelihoods. I'll now present to you these different programs and what type of activities these programs entail. So, in terms of health, as mentioned before, our intervention is being medical centers and mobile medical units. Primary health care needs everything except what's happening in the hospital. Okay? So basically, it's general and specialized consultations. We also have laboratories in our centers. We do also provide drugs. We have mental health counseling with the support of a psychiatrist or of psychologists. We also have interventions targeting particularly elderly and non-communicable disease, so chronic disease. There's a little typo here. So basically the idea is that this type of intervention aims at preventing hypertension, diabetes, and other types of chronic disease, particularly affecting elderly populations. And we do also have awareness sessions. Generally speaking, our approach is not only to different diseases, is to prevent them, which means that one of the very important components of our health interventions is awareness session. Then, indeed, as well, we have treatment. In all our centers, we have health activities targeting Lebanese and refugees and domestic workers. So again, and in practice, our vision of non-discrimination is being in terms of health, one other important thing I mentioned before is this idea of quality. And this quality, which guides our actions at the level of our health intervention, is also related to our work with the Ministry of Public Health here in Lebanon, a network of recognized primary health care centers. So, in order to have an enhancement of the quality of the services, we succeeded to have this network becoming a reality, and we now have more than 5 centers which are accredited and which have a high quality of provision of health services. It's a little bit the equivalent of ISO certifications, right? You have a checklist, and then, for instance, you need to have a certain number of specialties, a certain number of laboratory tests available for your for the people who are coming to your center. In terms of consultation, we are mainly receiving women and children, and the main diseases we are seeing are during winter respiratory tract infections and during summer digestive-related diseases. As you can see on the picture, our site, again, is quite diversified. And this is our idea. This idea of being universal and of being non-discriminatory also means for us that we have women and men staff, right? And that within the framework of our recruitment, we're trying as much as possible to have a very wide diversity of staff in order for them to reflect as well the composition of the populations they're working with. In terms of, we have 3 different interventions: remedial classes, which is, in other words, after-school support. So children are coming 3 times per week for 3 hours to do their homework with our volunteers. Also, we have what we call accelerated learning program. This is particularly designed for Syrian refugee children because many of them did not access education for the past 5 years. So they need to be enrolled in a program which will enable them to acquire a certain level of knowledge and then to integrate formal education in public schools. An important note is that here in Lebanon we have around 400,000 Syrian refugee children. Only 100,000 of them are enrolled in public education. And this is notably due to the fact that they don't have the level of knowledge to integrate the public schools. And this is why, as well as Amel, and based on the needs we saw at the field level, we made this decision to implement those accelerated learning programs so that we can help them to cope with the difficulties. And then we're also regularly conducting back-to-school campaigns, so providing children with school bags, with paper, with pencils, with pens, to enable them to integrate the formal system. So again, in here we have a comprehensive intervention targeting all populations which are in need of access to education. I should mention as well that we launched our Syrian crisis response back in April, and our approach was not to create new activities for refugees. It was to integrate refugees in the activities we were conducting. So all the programs I'm now showing have been implemented for the past 30 years with this us working to replicate as much both at the international level and with different kinds of population. In terms of child protection, we are all there targeting children, and our idea is to provide them with safe spaces. And what does it mean in practice? It means recreational activities, 3 times per week, 3 hours per day, learning languages by playing, a psychological counseling, and community events to all have their parents on board. We do also organize parenting skills training sessions, which are aiming at having the parents aware that they should have certain behavior to enable their child development. So, for instance, to promote non-violent behaviors and other coping behaviors in order for the parents not to be violent. Because for us, the protection of the children has it's not only with children, it's as well with their parents, which is why, again, our intervention is comprehensive. We're not only working with one type of population, we're working with all of them. We are currently enhancing as well the referral mechanism so that we can refer to other NGOs when we're seeing gender-based violence cases requiring legal assistance. We have as well a livelihood program. This livelihood program mainly targets women and youth. Why? Because based on our assessments, we know that these two types of population here in Lebanon, and they need to be empowered to integrate not only the economic life, but as well the social life. This targeting of youth is for us particularly important because they are our future, but as well because here it's quite a high risk of them going into some terrorist activities, which is why we want to build their capacity so that they have a future and that they are really contributing to the development of our country, not only Lebanon, because we're also working here in refugees, Iraqi refugees, so that they can contribute to the development of the Middle East and North Africa region. So what do we have in terms of particular activities? We have a handicraft cooperative, Manhiya, which means in Arabic, from her. And this cooperative is providing training opportunities to women that they can produce handicraft and then sell it and then have incomes to self-sustain themselves. For us, it's also a protection intervention because as soon as the woman generates income, she's becoming more independent and able to make decisions by herself within the framework of her household. It's also a very important means for us when we're working with widows or when we're working with women who are very young to empower them in order for them to be self-reliant. We do also have a project with youth which is composed of English and computer classes, vocational training. You can see one example here which is computer maintenance, but we do also have training with nursing, with mobile maintenance, with food production, with graphic and business office management and secretariat, and finally hairdressing. So this intervention, again, is composed of English classes, computer classes, vocational training, but as well work-related experience. What does it mean? It means internship, because for us it's not enough to provide the opportunity to these youths to acquire the skills. They need indeed to put them into practice. We do also have a component which is not included in the slide, but which is quite important. It's called community service. So for the youths who are not able to access it, we have small-scale projects in our centers to enable them to serve the needs of the community while putting into practice the skills they acquired within the framework of their vocational training. One very practical example, in one of our centers, we have a nursing vocational training, and the training of this particular vocational training are regularly going to an elderly house in order to provide elderly persons there with nursing support. So they are serving the needs of the community, needs are unmet by the state, and at the same time they are putting into practice the different skills they acquired during their vocational training. And indeed, as in all our intervention, we have a psychological support because, as I mentioned initially, to integrate the economic life, you as well need to integrate the social life. And often what we can see with the youth, but with the women as well, is that because they are living in very vulnerable conditions, and for the Syrian refugee, because they are bombing, because many of them really need political support to be able to integrate as well the economic life. So this is a very important commitment for us. It's not only about your skills and your capacities, it's also about your psychological well-being. We also have a distribution project. This is not a program in itself. We are doing distributions upon the needs we're seeing at the field level. So particularly during winter and in the camps where Syrian refugees are living, we would do this winterization campaigns, so distributing mattresses, heating mechanisms, a little bit of food, and clothes, and vouchers for clothes, and hygiene kits, okay? But trending products. Again, we're trying to protect both Lebanese and refugees. Why? Because we have Lebanese, as I mentioned before, who are living under the poverty line. And it's very important for us to serve the needs of all the affected population and not only of the refugees. Because, again, we are working through a non-discriminatory approach. As I mentioned, we have a project to support migrant domestic workers. There are 250,000 migrant domestic workers in Lebanon, and many of them do not have legal ID. So, we are providing them with legal support to regularize their situation. We are also providing them with psychological support because many of them are facing abuses from their employers, such as violence, such as harassment, and they need to be psychologically supported. Because we feel as well that this support is not enough, that these individuals need to be empowered to go to get out of this violence and abuse cycle with their employers. We provide these individuals with English classes, IT classes, hairdressing classes, makeup and tattoo classes. We already have many best practices and success stories with these individuals. Some of them are able to open beauty salons, others are able to gather some money here and to go back in their countries and to set up a small business there. So it shows us that it's not only about basic services, but it's as well and again about development. And indeed, we also have human rights promotion and protection activities with these individuals. So we are working here with a consortium of other Lebanese NGOs to amend the Lebanese law related to migrant domestic workers so that mechanisms would be implemented to enhance their protection. We are as well regularly publishing reports to raise the awareness, not only in Lebanon, but also at the international level on the situation of migrant domestic workers here in Lebanon. One also interesting component of this project is that we work with employers, because as it is the case for parents, the changes in terms of domestic happen also happening with the potential of violence and with the potential source of is not all of them indeed are, for instance, harassing their employees, but it is being noticed regularly. So what we're doing is that we're conducting regularly awareness sessions with the employers, explaining to them this person if you are being caught, or generally speaking, if you are violent with your employee, you're at risk of a trial. We can already see that there are behavioral changes. That, basically employers, through these awareness sessions, through the dialogue facilitated at the level of our center, these employers are changing their behavior. But indeed, awareness raising is not enough, and this is why as well we're conducting advocacy together with other Lebanese NGOs. In terms of rural development and gender, we have activities to support women-led cooperatives. So basically we support these cooperatives. There are hundreds of cooperatives in Lebanon in order to build their skills, because there are many cooperatives, but many of them are not able to generate enough incomes because one of the members of the cooperative is not having appropriate skills in terms of marketing or in terms of accounting. So what we do is that we assess the needs of these different cooperatives and we provide them with tailored training according to their needs. Marketing trainings, accounting training, quality production training. You also have small women, so you can back up which is necessary for them to enhance their production. Amel also supports directly one cooperative in South Lebanon, which is called the Amel El Cooperative. You can see the soap on the picture on the left of the screen. So there we're producing hundreds of soaps on a yearly basis, and these soaps are enabling women from South Lebanon, which is a very deprived region in Lebanon, so are enabling these women to generate income. We do also have what we call the MENA network. The MENA network gathers all the women cooperatives which are supported by Amel. And through this network, we provide the women with selling opportunities at one shop here in Beirut, which was created 1.5 years ago. We also opened, together with the women engaged in the women cooperative, a coffee shop to enable women producing food to sell their production on a regular basis. We also have a training center called Amel House for Human Rights. This training center provides on a yearly basis a training opportunity to more than 40 youths on international humanitarian law and law of conflict. The individuals targeted by these trainings are young jurists and young lawyers from the Arab region. It is quite an innovative initiative because there are many courses all around the world designed to build the capacities of young professionals on international humanitarian law. However, our summer school is one of the only interventions done for lawyers and for jurists. We also have an initiative called Video Advocacy Action, and within this framework we are training regularly underprivileged youths on human rights and on how to use camera and mobile phones to produce videos to advocate on their rights. We have a YouTube channel which is being used to disseminate their video. It's called rightscast.net. We now have many of the youths who are enrolled and who built their capacity in terms of human rights and of video production, who are being employed by NGOs. So it's not only something about protecting and promoting the right, it can also become, for the youths we're working with, an income generating opportunity. And again, you can hear that here we have interlinkages between all our interventions. Also, and regularly, we're organizing thematic trainings related to human rights, for instance, Palestinian rights, on business and human rights, and on gender and human rights. Finally, on a yearly basis, we publish 5 people researches in Arabic. Those researches are being done by young trainees we've been working with during the year. So basically, we select the 5 trainees and we give them the opportunity to do this research, and we publish these researches. Again, it's a very important added value for our intervention because it's not only about training, but it's also about producing knowledge and give the opportunity to the trainees to put into practice their skills acquired. We have a program called Amel Youth. It is composed of around 100 volunteers coming from all regions of Lebanon. They are regularly organizing exchanges with youths from the Arab region, and during these exchanges, they are exchanging indeed their experience. The latest exchange we had was in August 2015. We had more than 20 youths coming from Palestine, from Syria, and from Lebanon, doing activities together in order to build their life skills. We also have volunteering opportunities. So here at Amel, we currently have around 5 to 6 volunteers who are helping out in the centers we have with 24/7 class. So for instance, they are doing English classes, here at Reuters, we have, for instance, an intern who's dedicated to monitoring and evaluation, another one who's helping us out with our communication strategy. So it's a two-way opportunity. Indeed, these youth are helping us to fulfill some gaps in terms of AMEL activities, and as well we're contributing to build their capacities so that they can put into practice this knowledge they acquired often at university. We also have local and regional participants in the universities who are regularly doing activities. For instance, they recently organized 2-3 months ago planting trees activities. So they planted trees all over the city of Beirut in order to add a little bit of green space in this city. And they are doing also other activities with children. Because of our citizenship and engagement of the new generation. From a different program, I wanted to show you our organization. At AMEL we have 800 staff. Here you have the core staff. Our organization is head by our president, Dr. Kamel Mohanna. We have an executive director and an executive public. And then we are 3 program coordinators in charge of 5 different sectors. Kids, health, human resources, child protection, finance and development, and human rights. And then in these different sections, you have the different programs I described before. We replicated this structure at the field level. Our interventions are divided in 3 regions, and there we have responsibles for each one of the center, in addition to project officer and reporting officer. Among the 800 staff and volunteers I mentioned, we also have doctors, nurses, trainers, and teachers. More than 60% of our staff is composed of women, and more than 50% youth. So again, we're trying as much as possible to be a reflection of the society we're working with. Okay, in terms of decision-making bodies, so as I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation, AMEL was created in 1979, and as per our internal status, we have an assembly. We currently have 128 members, and this General Assembly meets once a year. The General Assembly supervises the annual work, which means that the General Assembly adopts the yearly reports and the yearly audit, and then would control the committees which are described in the following lines. One important thing indeed, which is not mentioned here, but again, except is that the General Assembly defines the strategy of the NGO for a period of 5 years and review it on a yearly basis. We have an administrative committee, which is headed by the president and elected by the General Assembly. It supervises the activity of the association on a monthly basis. They are allocating the funds necessary to the activity. And then we have this executive office composed of our executive director, our president, and our secretary general. They do prepare the work plan, the annual budget, supervise on a daily basis the center, and they organize the work between the different programs I mentioned. In combination with the program team, so they are more of the executive and elected part of our work. And then we have subsidiary committees related to health and education, which are being consulted, for instance, when we are designing new projects. In terms of General Assembly, we have our 128 members, and as well, in all our centers, we are holding on a yearly basis elections so that each center has a representative at the General Assembly. And here we're doing the same at our headquarters. We have an election and we elect one representative. This is also to make sure that the discussions held at the General Assembly do not stay with the General Assembly. They are not of the staff at the headquarters, and as well we can give our inputs on a yearly basis when it comes to the definition of the strategy. I also want to share with you our different programs. So yes, we serve the needs of the communities we're working with, but as well we are aiming at developing the capacities of our staff. We are holding regular training for our staff related to public health, project management, Excel, language skills, and others. Those trainings are often pro bono trainings provided by external trainers who are within the network of our NGO. Our Human Resources Department also ensures that regularly we have activities to strengthen the skills of our team. This is being done through performance evaluation, team building activities, but as well meetings between the center, not only to discuss issue, but as well to do training and to enhance their skills. The latest one we had was related to how do we manage stress as individuals at the level of the field and at the level of the headquarters. Here you have just an overview of the recruitment procedure. I won't go into the details, but why I'm mentioning this here, it's because, as you can see, it's a very collaborative procedure. And for me, it reflects our vision here at Amel. Even though we have an organizational chart, even though we have committees, our idea is that each and single decision should involve all the persons who may work on the project out. So it's from design the project and even though we're local national NGO, well, we have a very clear financial procedure. We're being very transparent with our donors and involved the field in this finance procedure. So it's not anything at headquarters level. As possible, we need to empower the staff of our centers so that they can themselves perform the controls, perform the day work in terms of finance. In terms of our general approach is a needs-based approach, which means that when we are noticing needs, we're going to work with people from the communities, with the municipalities, with the local representatives of the district to see how we can answer to these needs. It also means that the local populations can come to our centers, which are, as I mentioned initially, open to everybody, and suggest an intervention. And we would try to fund this intervention. So, and then we would indeed draft the proposal and try to find funds and evaluate regularly our activities not only through a monitoring and evaluation framework and some tests and some questionnaire. It's also about involving the beneficiaries in the evaluation. So we would do discussion groups with them. We would have as well complaint boxes. It's very, very important for us to working with the beneficiaries and not for the beneficiaries. Yeah. And we already have external evaluation indeed, and we have regular meetings with our field staff. A little brief about communication and visibility at our NGO. So we have a newsletter, activity reports, launching events, strong relationship with local and international media. You can access our website at the address you have here, www.amel.org. And we are present on different social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Amel works with different partners. These partners being our funder or the partner because they are involved in the implementation of the activities. So we're working with UN agencies, mainly with UNICEF and UNHCR, but as well with others. We are funded by different countries. It doesn't mean that we all these funding. It just means that over the past 5 years, we work in partnership with these different UN agencies and foreign development and cooperation agencies. We also work with partners between local NGOs, actually we're the focal point for a local platform of NGOs, but with international NGOs, partners or as funders, with Lebanese ministry and with the international networks I mentioned before. And in Africa, no hands Pakistan because we have a common partner, which is a German NGO, medical. And this is what we're aiming at as well, is not only to have bilateral partnership with NGO, but as well to try to create synergies with other NGOs who are partner of these NGOs. One last thing about our advocacy. With all these different partners, we're working to achieve a real complementarity of humanitarian action and a real and effective localization of humanitarian action. So this is also reflected in the way we are forming our partnership. For us, when we're working with an NGO, it's not only about getting money, or it's not only about getting their logo or our logo on the website. It's also about having a common vision of a non-discriminatory work, serving the needs of all the vulnerable populations, and ensuring dignity for all. So before saying thank you, I should mention one very important point, and unfortunately I don't have a slide about this, but the information is available on our Facebook page. Amel has been nominated 3 months ago by a former Lebanese minister for the Nobel Peace Prize. This nomination has been done within the framework.
So it's a lot of clapping for you.
I can continue. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Virginie. What a wonderful presentation for all of us. It's really updated us about the ML and ML extensive work throughout Lebanon. We are very much impressed with the ML association and its working. It's, generally throughout Lebanon, but especially with the Syrian refugees. So the audience would like to raise some question. So please respond, please. Any question, please? Let me start with the questions. Tell us more about the process of your nomination as a Nobel Peace Award. How did it started, and who really lobbied it, and where do you see this organization as far as the last decision of the Nobel Award is concerned?
So I have been nominated for this prize following basically many NGOs, members, the local civil society, members of international NGOs telling us you guys are doing an amazing work. Most of the society is doing an amazing work for the Syrian refugees, and Nobel Peace Prize would enable you to raise awareness of the situation of Syrian refugees and to get more focus on Lebanon. So we were nominated, right? It's not ourselves as an NGO who nominated ourselves. It's really someone who nominated us, a former Lebanese minister. And since then, a support committee was created, composed of international and national personalities. We got the support from the Lebanon Prime Minister, from around 30 members of the National Assembly of Lebanon, from the former UN High Commissioner Antonio Gutierrez, from UN Deputy Secretary, also quite a wide extent. And currently our support committee is conducting an advocacy campaign, and we will have in September a conference in Oslo to discuss this nomination. The idea of the Nobel Peace Prize is that it's a very political process. So the selection of the candidates will happen in October. So meanwhile, we're conducting this advocacy. We'll have this event in Oslo, but we won't know before October if we were selected or not. What's clear is that indeed we all want to get this prize, but what's the most important thing for us is not the prize. The prize is a tool. For us, the most important thing is that this campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize will enable us to raise the attention on the situation of the vulnerable Lebanese and of the Syrian refugees here in Lebanon, and that if we get the prize, it will maximize the impact of this international campaign. If we're not getting it, we will continue, and we will continue to implement action to really ensure effectively dignity for all.
Yeah, Virginie, tell us more about these Syrian refugees camp where you working, or Amel Association is working. What part of the Lebanon they are, and how many exactly the beneficiaries are there in the camps as far as the Amel Association is concerned, and what modalities you are delivering over there?
So Lebanon is quite a particular country as opposed to Turkey and Jordan in the neighboring countries of Syria, where you have official camps managed by the states. In Lebanon, we don't have official camps. So we have what we call informal tented settlements. Informal tented settlements can be 2 tents. It can be 100 tents. And basically, Syrian refugees are renting the field to the owner of the field, and they are building tents. Percentage, 20% of the refugee population who lives in these informal tented settlements. Those informal settlements are mainly located in the of Syria, so the Kar region. Other refugee population not conditions, right? Living in elective shelter, or even in the streets. So the tents, you have very bad living conditions, but also most of the other 50% refugees, like a big part of them, they also live in substandard living conditions. At Amel, we're indeed working in the camps because we see that there are needs over there. So we're in the camps through our mobile medical unit in terms of health services. We do also activities, so recreational activities, support of villages in these camps. And so we're teaching and working in these camps to go to our centers in order to be engaged in activities. There are in Lebanon more than 1,000 localities hosting refugees. So you can see to what extent it's important over a population of 4 million.
Okay. So the next question would be how an organization like HANDS could support Amel Association And what would be the process of getting into agreement if we want to support financially or even technically? How would you like to go through the process?
So our relationship that usually we are organizing a meeting to discuss our president being a Skype meeting or whatever it is, and then after we're discussing we want to cooperate. Generally, our approach is to have an MOU or an informal agreement on our scope of cooperation. So without funding, okay? We're not having like we're having funding, but generally and we like to have an MOU, which is a little bit more general. Then, in terms of need here in Lebanon, I think that we would be very interested. As I mentioned before, we have many capacity development activities, and we're always welcoming any training opportunities. So capacities you may have at hand in Pakistan that we can bring here for training and for coaching. This is the first thing I will see, and this can be done quite quickly. And then, indeed, in terms of funding, well, we're always looking for additional sources of funding, and our main unmet needs currently are our mobile units. We're running out of funding to upgrade our mobile units, even though very needed intervention.
Yes, there's another question about the charity, which I mean Islamic charity we call. You must be knowing it. We call it zakat. So, do you accept those funding from zakat, which has certain limitation for the Muslims only, especially in case of Syrian refugees? Do you accept those grants?
So we're not getting per se zakat funds, but we're getting individual donations, which may be done to zakat before, but per se we're not getting funds from zakat.
You don't accept, or you are not getting it?
It's not really a matter of accepting or not accepting. It's more a matter of we're getting individual donations. So we may get, for instance, we have things which are related to zakat, for instance, donations of building related to zakat, or a community who would invest what they would invest in zakat in our NGO. But to be fair with you, we never discussed here internally a policy to refuse zakat. It's more of, it doesn't work really this way here in Lebanon. It's more of individual donation for NGOs such as our NGO, who's non-sectarian. Indeed, I know other NGOs who are doing really good work and who are funded by zakat, but those are more of religious NGO here in Lebanon who are getting funds from zakat.
Okay, we can discuss later on this issue.
Yeah.
There's one more question from one of the colleague.
Hi, Osama here. Want to know regarding your Amel working regarding the street children. What Amel Association do for the street children? Because I visited your website. You have a domain of child protection and education. So what in current scenario, what Amel is doing for the street children betterment?
So for the street children.
Yep.
Okay. So we don't have per se intervention for street children, but we do have in our centers outreach workers who are going to identify these children in order to engage them in our project or to refer them, because many of them would be in need, for instance, of shelter. So our work with street children mainly goes through these outreach volunteers who are going around all over Beirut, all over the Bekaa, to identify the needs of these very vulnerable populations in Lebanon. And we also work in partnership with another NGO here in Lebanon called Insan, who has a particular school for street children. So we often refer to them children who are in need of this very particular and tailored program, and we send them to this school. Now, to be fair, street children is not a massive phenomenon here in Lebanon, okay? So you have street children, but many of them could live in shelter as well. But it is true that with the Syrian crisis, indeed, this phenomenon has increased.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's one more question, Sumera.
Hi, this is Sumera. You just mentioned in your presentation that Amel, that Amel is representing the local NGOs. Just want to know, is there any coordination mechanism, or Amel is chairing or having such a network of humanitarian organizations? On that behalf, they are representing that in HC team, humanitarian country team. Is there any humanitarian network mechanism in place regarding Amel?
Yes, so in Lebanon you have a couple of networks, but really the humanitarian platform is this informal platform I mentioned, which is a coordination mechanism of 20 humanitarian NGOs. When I'm saying 20, it doesn't mean that there are only 20 NGOs. It means that we have 20 active NGOs. So we are outreaching to at least 50 to 100 NGOs. And how coordination happens, where we're meeting on a monthly basis to discuss common issues. We are coordinating as well the submission for proposals when they are called. Joint policy papers, and we're as well ensuring through this informal platform coordination with the Lebanon Humanitarian International NGOs Forum, which is as well a platform for coordination between international NGOs, so that together we can have joint actions.
Okay. Yes.
This is Aslam Khan. My question is,
Yes,
Yeah.
Virginie, there's another question.
Yeah.
I'm Aslam Khan. My question is, what are the processes of registration of NGO and the documentary requirement, particularly if it is a foreign NGO?
Okay, so in Lebanon, national Lebanese NGO, it's very easy to be registered. In fact, it's a legal procedure where you have to declare that you created an NGO. So it's very easy for a local NGO. When it comes to a foreign NGO, there's a need for an authorization from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with a list of documents to be provided, such as the legal file of the representative of the NGO, such as the names of the board, the audit report, and other things. It takes time, and particularly currently with the Syrian crisis, there are some blockages with the registration of the foreign NGOs in Lebanon, because it has to be validated, the registration of foreign NGOs, by the Council of Ministers. And currently we are facing a political crisis here in Lebanon, and the Council of Ministers doesn't meet so often, and when they meet, they have other things to discuss than the registration of foreign NGOs. So there are currently dozens of registration of foreign NGOs pending here in Lebanon. So many NGOs operate without registration, but they are indeed at risk of being closed by the Ministry of Interior, who's the line ministry for registered NGOs in Lebanon.
How easy is the financial transfer from abroad to an NGO?
Okay, so here in Lebanon, the law is quite easygoing with a transfer to national NGOs. To international NGOs, you officially need to be registered to receive funds in Lebanon. Here, international are finding other ways to get the funds, but it's very difficult. So officially, and as per the Lebanese law, you need to be a registered NGO to open a bank account on the behalf of your NGO. When it comes to transfer, and practically speaking, transfer are possible. We don't have such control coming from the authorities, but it's becoming increasingly difficult because the authorities are monitoring the incomes coming from terrorist activities. So it's not that it's not possible, but it's taking more time than it used to take back, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Another question. Hi, I'm Rubina, and my question is that is there any sustainability of your organization? Do you have any endowment fund? And you just based on the formal donor funding.
Okay, I'm not sure I we're able to ensure an NGO cost contribution of beneficiaries and local populations to the activities of the NGO. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. As well, we own different properties. As I told you, we have some donations, so we rent the spaces related to these properties, and usually we have activities as well in these properties. So, for instance, we have a center in the south suburbs of Beirut. We are renting the ground floor to a supermarket, and with the incomes generated by the rent, we're able to pay the running costs of the building and the salaries of the core staff. And we're currently working on developing partnerships with the private sector to have more funds coming from other sources. Indeed, this process is guided by principles. We wouldn't accept money, for instance, from Total or from big fuel companies, but still we do believe that corporate social responsibility and involvement of the private sector is for us a good mean to diverse actors. Yeah.
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, one more question from my side.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, one more question from my side. That what's the best model of the service delivery that you are proud to be, that you have invented this and you have explored this? So, is there any best model of the service delivery in education, health, or human rights and advocacy?
Okay, it's very difficult for me to find the best model because I'm proud of everything we're doing thanks to the work of this staff at the field level, which is really amazing. So, and given the fact as well that we have a comprehensive cycle of activities, it's very difficult to differentiate health from education. So I'm going to give you this example of an innovative model, which doesn't mean that it's the only best practices. I would say that the model in itself is a best practice. So the video advocacy action we did with Lebanese and Syrian youths, for me, is a very good practice of what we're doing, because basically we built their capacities in terms of human rights. We built their capacities in terms of video production and training. So they were able themselves to produce videos to advocate for their rights, and then after we're able to raise awareness among the population about these different rights, and now some of them are able to become video producers. So basically, we have in one single activity the example of the comprehensive cycle and the comprehensive approach of Amel. Another thing I'm really proud about, I should have thought about it before, is that we have a pilot non-formal education project in one of our centers, and it's only funded by individual private donors outreached by one of our friends in France. So basically, it's purely and entirely private funded, and it only relies on volunteers. So why am I proud of this model? Because with a very small amount of money, 300 euro per year per child, we're able to ensure 9 months of after-school support with volunteers. And this is for me a model of a sustainable intervention when we're facing a crisis.
Good. Thank you, Virginie. I think there's no more questions, so we'd like to close it. But before closing, I would really acknowledge for sparing such a precious time. I know what important position you are. And thank you for Amel Association as well. on behalf of Hands Pakistan and Hands International, we would like to support Amel in working with the Syrian refugees. So I would require some material on fundraising appeal. Meanwhile, we'll definitely communicate on the email for this financial support. Thank you, Virginie. Thank you. We're looking forward to work with you.
Thank you so much to all of those of you who attended, who asked questions, and indeed personal thanks to you for taking this initiative, which is really interesting, and showing to all of us that South-South cooperation can happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.